News that we have for you is that, to the surprise of many, including, I'll be honest, myself, the Supreme Court has denied Donald Trump's bid to stay his criminal sentence. He is scheduled to be sentenced tomorrow to no jail time, but as of tomorrow, he will officially be sentenced for the 34-count felony conviction in New York.
It was a moment that shook the very foundations of the political landscape. The Supreme Court, the hallowed institution Trump once believed to be his safest haven, had turned against him. In a twist wilder than a reality.
The Supreme Court asked and answered. They have said no to Donald Trump's bid to stay his
TV finale. The highest court in the land delivered a ruling so brutal that even the former president's carefully coiffed hair seemed to deflate. The decision dropped like a rogue golf ball at Mar-a-Lago, and let's just say, Trump did not take it well. Will he accept defeat gracefully? Buckle up, folks, because this meltdown is going to be historic. Please don't forget to subscribe and like this video. It is free and help us bring you enjoyable content. And of course, watch till the end.
The argument on immunity is very important. The president has to have immunity. This has nothing to do with me. This has to do with a president in the future for 100 years from now. If you don't have immunity, you're not going to do anything. You're going to become a ceremonial president. You're just going to be doing nothing. You're not going to take any...
Going into this case, Trump had been banking on a Hail Mary, hoping the justices, some of whom he appointed himself, would toss him a golden parachute. After all, wasn't this the court that had been kind
of the risks, both good and bad? I mean, you're going to make some great decisions and save the country, and you're going to make some decisions which are unfortunate, but that's the way it is. But you're not going to do anything if you don't have immunity, because otherwise you're going to be prosecuted after you leave office for doing something like going into an area, going into a country, doing lots of things that you wouldn't be doing. And we don't want a ceremonial president. We have to have a real...
Conservatives? Wasn't this supposed to be his judicial security blanket? But the Supreme Court, in a move that left even the most seasoned legal minds reeling, did the unthinkable. They followed the law. The ruling came down like a lightning bolt,
You're watching The Legal Breakdown. Glenn, we have been talking about these court cases that Trump's been contending with for quite a while now. Finally, another one has just made its way up to the Supreme Court. We have a pretty surprising ruling here. Can you explain what just happened?
Yeah, Brian, this I view as the first test of whether the Supreme Court will let Donald Trump's sort of appetite for dictatorship, his abuse of power, go completely unchecked. And at least today, 5 Supreme Court justices said, no, we're going to be a legitimate check on Donald Trump's sort of, desire for unconstrained.
Iterating whatever fragile legal strategy Trump had left, whether it was about disqualifying him from ballots, rejecting his immunity claims, or something else entirely. The decision made one thing crystal clear: the former president was not above the law. You could almost hear the collective gasp from his inner circle as the reality of the situation sank in. This was no minor inconvenience. This was a big deal, the kind of decision that keeps...
The real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people, and they know what happened here, and everybody knows what happened here.
Trump sat stone-faced, stoic, looking down as the verdict was read in court as he heard the jurors affirm the verdict. Guilty, 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 34 times.
Even the toughest lawyers up at night. Trump, it seems, never saw this coming. He had spent years convincing himself that the judiciary was just another extension of his influence, like his attorneys, his political allies, or his army of online superfans. But courts don't run on loyalty pledges and campaign promises. They run on precedent, law.
The United States Supreme Court is not taking Juan Merchan out of his chair as he considers whether and when he will sentence Donald Trump for the 34 felony count conviction in New York, nor are they going to disturb the gag order that Judge Merchan put in place over a year and a half ago, or almost 2 years ago, against Donald Trump in that matter. That in a new ruling by Justice Alito, of all things.
And sometimes just good old-fashioned common sense. And as the decision sank in, the meltdown began. Aides whispered nervously, lawyers avoided eye contact, and somewhere, a golf cart was probably getting kicked. Truth Social became a war zone of all-caps rants, wild accusations, and at least 3 separate posts about how this would never happen in Russia. Silence hung in the air at Mar-a-Lago for exactly 3 seconds before it shattered like a cheap chandelier. Trump was losing it, ranting about firing everyone in sight, seemingly unaware that Supreme Court justices, unlike contestants on The Apprentice, cannot be dismissed with a dramatic point of the finger. This ruling wasn't just a loss, it was a catastrophe for Trump.
I think it's very important that the Supreme Court recognize that what he's doing is a delaying tactic, and that the American people, it cannot be the case that a president of the United States can attempt to overturn an election and seize power, and that our justice system is incapable of holding a trial, of holding him to account before the next election.
Trump's legal defenses, his political ambitions, and, most importantly, his ego. Every case he's entangled in, whether it's election interference, classified documents, or the "I swear I barely knew those fake electors" saga, just became a whole lot harder to wiggle out of. His entire strategy was built on the idea that he could delay, dodge, and intimidate his way out of consequences. But now,
I want to start by thanking the Supreme Court for its unanimous decision today. It was a very important decision. We're very well crafted, and I think it will go a long way toward bringing our country together, which our country needs. And they worked long, they worked hard, and frankly, they worked very quickly on something that will be spoken about 100 years from now and 200 years from now. Extremely important. Essentially,
the Supreme Court has slammed the brakes on that plan, and he's not taking it well. Legal analysts, including some who usually defend him, were quick to point out the obvious. He should have seen this coming. Even the conservative justices, the ones Trump handpicked with the enthusiasm of a
news that the United States Supreme Court has just announced that it will hear Donald Trump's immunity case. It will hear that case on April 22nd.
This is a momentous decision just to hear this case. There was no reason in this world for the Supreme Court to take this
reality show judge assembling a dream cast knew there was only so much legal acrobatics they could justify before the whole system collapsed under its own hypocrisy. The ruling didn't just affect this one case. It set a precedent that could bulldoze every legal excuse Trump was planning to use in his upcoming trials. Immunity? Gone. Executive privilege? Not a magic shield. Delaying tactics? Running out of road.
Case. Under the Constitution and the laws of the United States, there's never been an argument that a former president is immune from prosecution for crimes that he committed while in office. The Supreme Court is capable of deciding this very quickly in time that...
The aftermath of this ruling was pure political chaos. The media went into overdrive, with legal analysts trying not to smirk as they explained, in the most professional way possible, that Trump is screwed. Late-night comedians had a field day roasting his meltdown like a well-done steak at Mar-a-Lago. Meanwhile, the MAGA world imploded. Trump's most loyal followers reacted exactly as expected.
Donald Trump, it is about a justification of his actions leading up to that day and on that day. There has been no acknowledgement of any wrongdoing. Instead, he has justified his responses in those hours after. And when we talk about the appeals court in their ruling this week that he does not have, did not have presidential immunity, Donald Trump was asked an important question by our colleague Dasha Burns, who was down there at
Unhinged. The ruling was proof, they declared, that the Supreme Court had been infiltrated by secret communists, globalists, or possibly even the ghost of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Conspiracy theories flooded social media. Everything from the justices were blackmailed to this is all part of Trump's master plan. In Congress, the Republicans scrambled, with the diehard Trump loyalists going straight into
Mar-a-Lago. And that was the extent to which a president is bound constitutionally from any actions that he or she chooses to take from the Oval Office. And his answer was very striking. He said that a president should be allowed to do whatever he or she sees fit, and even included, quote, he can do really bad things for our country. So on one hand, Donald Trump is justifying his actions on the January 6th, the day of the January 6th, 2021 attack.
Panic mode, demanding impeachment proceedings. The once unshakable former president was now on the ropes, his legal defenses in ruins, and his fragile ego shattered. In the end, this ruling will go down as a pivotal moment in the ongoing saga of Trump's legal battles. It's a stark reminder that even the mightiest of egos can be brought low by the unwavering power of the law. And for those who would seek to follow in Trump's...
Well, the Trump administration will have to repay frozen foreign aid to nonprofits after the Supreme Court issued its first major ruling on his executive actions. It's one of dozens of legal challenges the Trump administration is facing as they try to reshape the federal government. The president touted his executive actions in his address to Congress last night, calling the first month of his presidency the most successful in history.
Footsteps. Let this be a cautionary tale. The Supreme Court, once thought to be the president's personal legal stronghold, has shown its true colors, a steadfast guardian of the rule of law, unwilling to bend to the whims of even the most powerful. So, as the dust settles on this latest chapter, one thing is clear: the walls are closing in on Trump, and his legal woes are far from over. The only question that remains is, will he finally learn to accept defeat gracefully, or will he continue to rage against the machine, doomed to forever chase the elusive victory that always seems to slip through his fingers?